There's a new villain in town. It's a little beetle. We're losing oak trees. Well, hello friends on YouTube. This is Nathan Lawrence, Good News Tree Service in Wilsonville, Oregon, your tree evangelist. So it's a beautiful spring day in March. Actually, we're in April now, April 2nd, 2024. And I'm the Good News Tree Service. And I pride myself in bringing people good news, but it's not always the case when it comes to trees, especially invasive pests, because we've got a new pest in town. I'm standing here next to about a 200-year-old, probably about 150, 175-year-old oak tree. I know because I've cut a few of these down in my long career and counted the rings. So, I thought it was bad enough about 12, 13, 14 years ago when the bronze birch borer made its way into our area and has subsequently killed about 65% of the birch trees. I know we've taken down a lot of them ourselves in our area. And then 2 years ago, going on 3 years ago, or no, I guess it was 2 years ago, the emerald ash borer, which has ravaged the ash trees on the East Coast, the Great Lakes area, in the Midwest and New England. Well, now we found the emerald ash borer in the Portland area, and it's moving its way outward, and it's targeted to kill all the ash trees unless they're treated. And I've made videos on that. Well, just when we think it couldn't get any worse, about a year ago, not quite a year ago, a new pest moved in called the Mediterranean oak borer. You can't make this stuff up. And, I do plant healthcare. I treat trees. I do everything I can to save trees. But there's a new villain in town. It's a little beetle. It's about an eighth of an inch long. I've seen some crawling around on this actual tree. We're losing oak trees. This is an Oregon white oak, Quercus garryana. Oregon white oak, it's native to our area here, the northern Willamette Valley. And I've been working on these oak trees for years. Some of them are up to, 5-6 feet in diameter. They can be up to, 200, 225, 250 years old. They've been surviving, doing well, thriving here in the Willamette Valley. And we have some of these gigantic trees out here in some of these farm fields that are beautiful and hemispherically shaped, and they've been growing like that for 200 years or more. Well, now we have this new pest that was recently discovered. So here is a look at this Oregon white oak. It's a native tree and it's dying. A lot of dead branches already on it. Here there's an oak tree right next to it. You can see the buds. This tree is right there. This is the one that is dying. We've lost some other ones in Wilsonville, and Wilsonville is almost at the epicenter of this outbreak in the state of Oregon. Now, there was one other tree that was discovered by Oregon Department of Forestry in Troutdale, just east of Portland, but we're south of Portland here in Wilsonville, about 18 miles, and this now is ground zero for this outbreak. Where it came from and how it got here, nobody knows, but already several of these majestic oak trees have died, and other trees are starting to show signs of it in our area here in Wilsonville. And I have my thumb on the pulse of what's going on, both scientifically with regard to the state of Oregon Department of Forestry. I'm in contact with their people who are monitoring this situation, the entomologists, the foresters, and am keeping updated with what's going on. I've purchased the equipment to be able to hopefully treat these trees. There is no known cure for this disease. I don't care what anybody tells you. There is no cure for it, and I'll explain that in a minute. So this pest was first discovered in Wilsonville about a year and a half ago. It was positively ID'd about 9 months ago, about 2 miles from where this tree is on the other side of town. And since then, we've all been kind of doing a crash course of learning about the Mediterranean oak borer, or the MOB, and doing everything we can to educate ourselves so that we can help hopefully preserve and protect some of these glorious trees that are growing out here. Now, the Mediterranean oak borer is not new to North America. It's new to Oregon and to this area, but it came into Northern California, into the wine country, in 2019. It is thought that it maybe came in on barrel staves used to make wine barrels from oak that was imported from maybe the Mediterranean area, hence the name Mediterranean oak borer. The oak borer is a beetle that bores into the wood, and it gets into the vascular system of the wood, burrows around in there. The grub does, and then the beetle actually, it's a little tiny beetle, like I said, it's about 1/8 of an inch long. It brings in a fungus that in its mouth parts. It vectors in this fungus, and the fungus infects the galleries and the area where the beetle is, and then the beetle grubs, the little larvae, actually feed on the fungus. And it's the fungus is thought to be the thing that actually kills the tree, although having the galleries around in the vascular wood doesn't help the tree either. So this came into California in 2019, and the scientists down there with the universities and the forestry department have yet to come up with a conclusive cure for this disease. Now, they are trying a couple of things. So here's the tree under the one that's dying. Here's another one over here that's not affected yet. This one is doing well, the one next to it. And then here you have all of these, there's a whole forest full of Oregon white oak trees. Off in the distance, almost all those trees that you see out there are all Oregon white oaks. So to lose these trees would be very, very devastating to our ecosystem and to our environment around here. Oh, there's a deer. See them? This area supports a lot of wonderful habitat, and we don't want to lose these. But the problem is, in the 5 years or so that it's been in California, they have not, if affecting the white oaks down there, which is a little different species of white oak, but it's still in the similar to the Oregon white oaks. The scientists have yet to come up with a definite pesticide to go after this very difficult pest. There is an insecticide that can be micro-injected into the tree that is thought to have some promising results to kill the beetle, and there's also a quasi-systemic fungicide. I've done the research, I've talked to the people that produce these products, and they're not making any guarantees or that it will cure the tree, but it's showing promise that it might help. So there is no conclusive or surefire cure for the Mediterranean oak borer at this time. So if you were to hire me to treat your trees, I couldn't make you those promises that this would cure your disease, the disease and the beetle, that it would eradicate it. However, knowing how valuable these oak trees are, and knowing how expensive they are to remove via crane, climbers, heavy equipment, it's worth spending a few $100s to save your oak tree. Now, this is my theory. I've been working with these trees for, like 40 years. I've climbed many of them. I've taken them down. I've been around them. I've seen them. I treat them. Plant health care. I've been around these trees all my life, 60 some years. And one thing that I have noticed is that we are in a prolonged, because of climate change here in Western Oregon, we've been struggling with drought. So not enough rain during the rainy season. And even perhaps more critical than that is the fact our summers are starting like a month or two earlier and lasting longer. And these trees have not adapted to that environment. They're used to a summer that will last, maybe a month and a half or 2 months, not one that lasts for 3 or 4 months. These oak trees take up a tremendous amount of water. Every day, hundreds of gallons of water during the summertime. These oak trees that are behind me here, and any large tree does. And when there's not enough soil moisture content in the soil, guess what? They cavitate, they dry out, they desiccate. They're not able to keep their metabolic activities going. They're not able to keep themselves hydrated. The wood fibers begin to break apart. The water conducting vessels and cells begin to cavitate and break apart, and this puts this tree in a stressful situation, and I believe that it makes the tree more susceptible to pests. And this is what I'm seeing with the trees that are dying around here, the oak trees. Just like this one here that we're looking at, many of these trees, not all the ones I've looked at, but most of the ones that are dying because of the Mediterranean oak borer or are dying because of stress due to dehydration, most of them have had their roots impacted either by road cuts, sidewalks, infrastructure of one kind or the other, or they are construction stress, construction trauma. They're in a construction zone where the roots have been dug into, the soil's been compacted by heavy equipment, or they are people built driveways and houses and foundations just right down around them, just right down the street. I looked at an oak tree just the other day, like got 4 blocks from here, that is dying. It doesn't have that Mediterranean oak borer as far as I can tell, but its roots have been majorly impacted by driveways, foundations of houses, and is squeezed into a small area. And we're talking about an oak tree that's almost the size of the one we just looked at here. So that tree is probably 125 years old. So there are a couple things you can do. And one of them is, and again, I offer this service. If you have an oak tree or any tree that is suffering from drought stress, there is a product that we can put in as a soil drench, a plant growth regulator that will help the tree to preserve its moisture and less moisture evaporating out of the tree. And if you have any questions, you can call me. And that product is well researched, a lot of university studies behind it. And one application is good for like 3 years. I think it's 3 years. I have to go back and check the label, but I think it's 3 years. The other thing too on these oak trees is they can be micro-injected with a systemic fungicide and a systemic insecticide. And it's off, again, we can't guarantee it will help, but there's promise that it will help to mitigate the trees. So the answer is give your trees more water, apply this plant growth regulator that will help the trees so they don't lose so much water during the hot summer months, and then treat it with this product, these 2 products, micro-injected. And these products you cannot buy over the counter. You have to be a licensed commercial pesticide applicator to purchase them, which I am. In this case with the Oregon Department of Agriculture. Main symptom of the Mediterranean oak borer is you're going to see frass. Frass is now this is in the spring, so there's no new fresh frass. But you're going to see, if you look in the cracks of the bark, you will see little like sawdust. There's some in there. It's dark. It's weathered during the wintertime, but there's sawdust. It's dark. There's some more here in the crevices of this oak tree. So that's the wood. The beetle, as it's boring into the oak tree, is going to kick out little sawdust shavings. So that's going to be one sign of it, and you're going to see little holes like right there. You can't really see it too well, but there's a hole there. That's where the beetle, its exit hole. I see other holes here. And you may even see, if you really look carefully, see some little beetles crawling around on the outside. So anyway, that's one of the first signs. And of course, look for deadfall, look for branches dying, whole branches dying, and it can go pretty quickly, like it's been going on with this tree here. This tree a year or two ago was totally healthy, and it's only taken a year or so for it to almost totally die. So here is another beautifully shaped Oregon white oak. You can see the silhouette of it against the sun. And this is in North Wilsonville, right? We're looking at the Target store here. And so this is another tree that's under our watchful consideration. This tree is a object of concern because you can see the roots have been impacted. The tree, this planting island has been extended out to, not even to the drip zone. Before this tree was, this area was developed, the roots would have been extended probably out 1.5 times to 2 times the width of the tree. Now, this tree is potentially a prime target, no pun intended. There's the Target truck right there. No pun intended, but a prime target for the getting stressed out because of the Mediterranean oak borer and lack of water. This tree is not showing signs of Mediterranean oak borer yet. This tree is it's about 4 feet in diameter, so it's probably a good 175 years old, I'm guessing, somewhere in there. Maybe not quite 200 years old. But one of the concerns that I alluded to earlier was I've seen a lot of the trees that get the Mediterranean oak borer are in areas where the roots have been cut. Either cut or they've been severely stressed or impacted due to a construction trauma and that kind of thing. So I have a theory about trees and their roots, and I'm not going to be too easily dissuaded from my theory because I've been working with trees for 40 to 50 years and I've seen this. So typically trees have about 1/3 more roots than they really need. What do I mean by that? Well, when you dig a tree, we have a lot of nurseries around here. This is the nursery capital of North America, Clackamas County, where I live and where my business is. And a lot of nursery stock, a lot of field-grown trees. And when the trees are grown in the fields and then the nurseries dig them, they cut off a good 1/3 or more of the roots to form the root ball, which then is shipped to nurseries and go into people's yards or wherever. And so a tree doesn't need as many roots as it has. So why does it have extra roots if it doesn't need all those roots? Well, we have seen the reason why in this area where we have experienced drought and longer, hotter summers. The trees, I believe, have more roots than they need, so that when they come into a dry spell where there's prolonged drought or there's longer, hotter summers and they need to pull up more water to keep themselves hydrated, they have the extra root capacity, the extra roots out there that they can call into service, if you will, to pull your extra water drawing capacity due to the extra roots that they need. Trees are very smart. They've adapted to their environment and they have many defense mechanisms to ward off pests or drought or whatever the case may be, abiotic situations. And this tree behind me, like I said, is probably 175, maybe not quite 200 years old, and it has survived a long time by adapting and by adapting to its environment. So when a tree is, the roots are greatly reduced and a giant tree like this is planted in a planting island, and not only that, there's a Douglas fir tree there that's also in the same island, is competing with this oak tree for a limited number of resources, moisture in this case. I just hope that this tree can make it. We will see. So here's another oak tree in Wilsonville. As you can see, the top of it is all busted out, and there's a debris field underneath this tree. This tree has been on the decline for a couple of years. I've been watching it. It's out in the middle of a field, and this tree is about, oh my, it's a good 5 feet in diameter. This tree is probably well over 200 years old, and it has the Mediterranean oak borer. I've actually found some beetles, which I will show you the pictures of, actually on this tree, as well as frass. And this tree was out in the middle of a farmer's field. Right now it's just a pasture of field grass, but I remember when they used to plant wheat here, and so this tree would have been plowed around, probably out to the drip zone, and so its roots were disturbed for years. I've been driving by this tree for 40 years, and I remember for years this field was planted with wheat, and so this tree would have been had its roots disturbed by disking and plowing. Whereas over here we have a whole forest of oak trees. There used to be a farmhouse sitting right there, and those trees appear to be healthy. I haven't examined them, but they don't appear to be dying. I've been watching them for many years, and they're surrounded by blackberries, and there was no farming, plowing, cultivating activity going on around them. So again, this tree, this lone tree out here, this white oak, supports my theory that it was stressed due to root disturbance, and now it is little by little succumbing to Mediterranean oak borer, sadly. I wish I could be the bearer of good news, but unfortunately, there isn't really any good news to say about the Mediterranean oak borer. And we love our oak trees, and we don't want to see them see their demise, but we're doing everything we can. And I hope this helped somebody. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. All right. God bless.